For letter N, we're going to look at Noah, because I think we're kind of missing the most important lesson of this guy's life. And that's, let me try to set it for you. God famously comes to Noah and tells him, there's going to be a flood, you need to build an ark. And then Noah does, he builds the ark, but we have no record of God ever speaking to him again until that ark is done and it's time to start loading animals on there. And that's pretty amazing to me, because the question is, how long did that take? And this is another one of those things that Bible scholars like to squabble over for no good reason, because it really doesn't matter. Like, some people think it's 120 years, all the way down to, I saw one that thought it was only 40 days, which I'm sure it's somewhere in between those two. There's a lot of evidence that would have been no more than like 75 to 80 years, just based on the ages of his sons, who God said would be on the ark with him and things like that. But then I can't imagine it was 40 days. Like, this was the stinking ark encounter in Kentucky. That took them 6 years with modern equipment and whole construction teams. This is Noah and probably his three sons. The Bible pretty strongly indicates that nobody else was with him on that one. And so you're looking at like four dudes with, I'm sure, pretty crude tools. Definitely not cranes and bulldozers and whatnot. They had no power saws. And so this had to take a long time. It's a lot of work. It's probably very, very expensive. And that's the amazing thing of Noah to me, is how long can you keep going on something that God said? Because God talked to him once, as far as we can tell. And he does this whole project. You know, somehow he's keeping his family alive, but this is what he dedicates his life to. This is what he does. And if you've ever seen the movie Evan Almighty, it does kind of a modern take on this, and it shows how when this guy starts building an ark, people start making fun of him and laughing at him because he looks ridiculous building this gigantic boat, because it's stinking huge. And especially according to Genesis, you know, it had never rained before. So the idea of there's going to be a flood, what in the world is that? There's no such thing as that much water, you know. And he had to look utterly ridiculous. And the Bible doesn't really talk about people making fun of him, but I got to assume that must have happened. And just how long can you go with something that God said? How long can you keep obeying what he told you one time? And that's a really impressive thing to me. We celebrate Abraham for his faith and patience. I think Noah deserves more credit than that, because he more than likely worked at this thing longer than Abraham waited for a son. And this wasn't just wait. You know, Abraham, it was go about your life, do your normal stuff, and trust that someday God is going to fulfill the promise. Noah, it was, here's a job to do. Work at it. Spend your life at this. And in hindsight, we can look at it and say, yeah, it was the right call. Noah, you know, is celebrated in the New Testament as a preacher of righteousness because his life preached this sermon, because of his faith and trust and obedience. And that's what, frankly, condemned the world around him, because no one else would listen and go along with that. That's way more impressive to me than even Abraham, because it's so hard to stick with something through the work when it gets old, when it gets boring, when you get to second guessing and going, am I insane? Am I sure God said that? Like, that's one of Satan's favorite things. Did God really say? And Noah endures through however long that took, through however difficult this project was. And I think that's an amazing lesson to take from him, and we completely miss that when all we look at is a boat full of animals.